click full screen. Okay. All right. Let me just start at the beginning again, just for a quick second here. When we do our storyboarding, we're going to be looking at our strategy document and our storyboard document. Strategy document informs our storyboarding if it's written right. Our strategy document has these images for sliders, and we put standardized text, which I've started putting in already. If you're working on a slide that's further down in here, come up to these early slides and cut and paste this standardized text for your slides later. If it's not there, might be there. So a slide that has content below the slider, any concept other than an intro slide, will have a table like this, and you want to list the objects that are going to be below the slider. As in slide 2, there's going to be a text document, a scenario, an image for the thumbnail for the scenario. We're not mentioning the fact that there's going to be a lot of components within the scenario, and we probably should. We also have an activity, which is going to be a discussion. And we have these slides for putting our content in for each of these items. Our text document, our text is going to be here. We're just going to enter in what we're going to say. By the way, when we write text, we write very succinctly, and we try to say it, and we say what we need to say as clearly as possible with the least possible words. In our strategy document, we have a window to put our guidance here, and so we should cut and paste it in there. We really should have something like that for the text document. It's not there, but we should have it. We do have a place to put the guidance in for this as well. I'm wondering why I have two text boxes here. That's not very good. It's going to cause some confusion. Okay, so we don't need that other one. We can delete that. All right, so we're going to cut and paste our guidance for the image spec. And if you find that the guidance in the strategy document isn't right, you either can wing it and ask for team approval, or just ask the team to help you with that guidance. Because you have never done a storyboard, some of you, you may not understand what kind of help you need in the strategy document. But once you get you find yourself sitting in the storyboard, you're going to get a sense of how ill-prepared you are. I've got to put something on this page, but I'm not really sure exactly what I should put here. You know, that's where the strategy document can help a lot. So we're going to have interns pick a module that they want to start working on. As I said to the rest of the team before I recorded, you're going to be working on modules, but that doesn't mean that you are solely responsible for that. So you're going to create it, but all interns should be looking at what everybody does, because we all need to be fairly consistent in how we approach things, and also we need to help each other. When I create something, it's not always great, and it's always good to have other people looking at it and give me feedback on it. So one of my best experiences when working as an instructional designer is having a QA department that reviews my work. When you have a great QA department, they go through your work, they flag anything that's not clear or not consistent with standards, and all you have to do is walk through your content and stop at those points and address those. It's much easier than trying to go through your own work and looking for flaws. That becomes sort of a collaborative effort. People point out to you that you know what you're saying there is not exactly clear. You could try again and say, what do you think about this? Or what's not clear about it? You know, you can work with them and get your content better. And I like to see my interns helping each other the same way. Now, with all that introduction, do people have any thoughts about, anybody want to grab a module?
I think we can just go with the modules that we talked about in the strategy document, and then just take those same modules for storyboarding as well.
Okay, right. So you could take the module that you did in storyboard. And I know you're not up with us, Waishan, and I'm not going to try to push you to go faster than you're able to go. But if you want to, you can grab Kieran's module. So if we look at the strategy document, and we come down here, Kieran's is module 2. And I'm going to put your name here in parentheses. Now, W-A-I, and I'm probably saying your name wrong, so it's, I know the first part is Y, and the second one is Sean. I'm trying to say that right so that there's a little break between the Sha and the N, and it's probably Sean. How about that? I'm putting in parentheses here so that so Waishan is going to pick up for Kieran while she's not here, and hopefully you'll be able to get to this maybe over the Christmas vacation. So just let us know if you can't do it or if you need help. Okay, and when you're walking through other modules, the needs assessment and objectives, join in those discussions as if those were current. And if you have any concerns about the what's in those other documents, join into them. I honestly didn't get a chance to review what the team did for the final assessment strategy, and I belatedly got to the objectives and revised the objectives because they weren't right. The team should actually be looking at those objectives. And by the way, Michelle, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be ignoring you a lot.
No, I'm listening.
Good. I just want to let you know, I realized at some point that I kept referring to Waishan and Ankit, but it's as if I'm ignoring you, and I don't mean to be doing that.
No, I'm here.
I'm giving Ankit more attention because I'm so appreciative of his being here at this odd time. And
Right.
Waishan's new.
Not for much longer, actually. I'll
Right.
need to get going in the next few minutes.
Well, you can go as soon as you want because I think I pretty much covered most of what we need to cover.
Yeah.
So you're free to go. Do you have any questions, Ankit?
Not at this stage, Thomas. Like I said, I'll give it a go first, and then if I get stuck anywhere, then I'll put it up for questions.
Okay. Don't be surprised if you find that the strategy modules are completely different when you look at them again. But we're going to keep this. The discussion will still be there, but I'm going to explain it better so that Waishan and Alice have a better understanding of what that document is all about.
Okay.
One of the things I want people to be thinking about too, think about for me, because we didn't really focus on this a great deal. What about these modules? What modules need to be, do we need to put a note about connecting what concepts need to connect with another concept? So when there's a relationship between concepts, how can we connect them? And that's, like particularly when one concept builds on another, we need to sort of reflect to the other concepts so they tie together. It doesn't have to be involved a big deal, just some sort of connection. So we need to keep an eye on that. We didn't really focus on that when we're doing the strategy document, and we should have. And I've been thinking I need to add some component that sort of makes that part of the process. So anyway, Ankit, I want you to go to bed.
Yeah. Alrighty. Okay. See you
Okay.
guys.
Yep.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And Michelle and Waishan, thank you for being here. Do you guys have any particular questions or needs that I can help you with at this point?
No, I think I'm just gonna get in there and try and see how it goes.
Now you were having some difficulty with the understanding the strategy document. Do you think you
Yes.
have it now?
Yes, I understand now.
Okay, so I'm going to look here. It says the learner understands the four-step KeelWorks process for assertive response. Now, what I think we need to go beyond that they understand.
Okay.
So what more do we want from them in this four-step response? Is that they understand the four-step response? Is that enough?
Maybe they change their behavior.
Well, aren't they learning new behavior?
Yes.
So at this point in Module 4, they're just understanding and practicing and learning. But I think one of the things is that they're able to do it, right?
Yes.
So we need to add that in there. We also might want to talk about how we want them to get a sense of how each of these processes support the outcome that we want. So why is it important to describe the behavior? So the first step is when you do this, and we're being very explicit about what this is, right?
Uh-huh.
So we want them to have a sense of, not just say, oh, I'm supposed to do this, and like a robot do what we tell them to do, but we'd kind of like them also to get a sense of what's happening when we're doing that step and how that works. How does that affect the desired outcome? So
Okay.
remind them the desired outcome is that we feel we've addressed the violation and our feelings, and that we can move on from this event without a whole lot of baggage, right? Because we've addressed it. And that's the ultimate. So when specifically describes what it is, you really aren't going to expect anybody to understand you if they don't even know what particular behavior is offending you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they need to understand that. They understand exactly what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, why it's effective. So there's the I'm going to put some notes here for you. There's
Okay.
can do, why do this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure what else, but you want to think, remember, information by itself isn't enough to affect change. And you have to think about what are they going to have after this module they didn't have beforehand. And by the way, so actually what I'm talking about here is applies to each of the individual concepts. I forgot that all we really want out of this part is that they understand that we're going to introduce the four-step, the step process for responding to violations. So what you have here isn't quite right either. As a result of our introduction, we don't want them to understand the process. We only want them to understand what we're going to do in this module, which is teach them the process, right?
Okay.
And so each one of these things, we want to address these things here. So we need to, they understand that this module right? So that's all we're doing. That's all that we need from them, that they know that what's coming, right? So for the introduction, but for each one of these steps, we need them to understand how they use this step, but also they should get in their head, why are we doing this? Why is it important to do it this way? And why is it important to be explicit about what behavior someone's doing that's giving us a problem? And then why are we, in the next step, we're talking about I feel. Why do we need to be clear about the feelings that we have? We need to kind of address that. They need to understand that. If they understand why they're doing what they're doing, they're much more likely to do it. So just knowing how to do something isn't really enough when it comes to changing behavior. We need to tell them about why.
Okay.
So you want to get a little further in that, and then look at what you're doing here as far as the guidance you're giving. This component will describe the first step in the process. What you need to be thinking about here is this enough for storyboarding? Does it explain how we're going to explain things? Is it telling the storyboarder what part this piece is playing in getting the outcome, the aha that we want? Isn't this where we're going to actually talk about why? So really, the HTML has a lot of work to do here. The HTML teaching document, it has more burden than the multimedia, because the multimedia is just simply showing the process. We're going to show them in our multimedia. It's going to illustrate a visual illustration of someone explaining, this step of the process. When you step on my feet as we dance, I feel, So you're going to have to talk about how important it is to be very clear about what someone's doing and how to do that in a way that isn't offending someone. So instead of saying, when you act like a jerk, or when you dance like a clumsy oaf or a big fat bear and step on my feet, now when you've added that characterization, you're violating their personal space. So again, this is the kind of stuff you need to explain here, right? And you need to make it clear what that person needs to address in this explanation. Now you're not going to tell them, what to say, but you're going to, you might just simply say, make sure they understand why it's important to describe behavior without characterization. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. You want to tell the person writing this to address these things. And you might also want to warn them that this is strictly about describing behavior. So be careful not to drift into the feeling part or any other part that's going to be covered by the next concept, right? So this part here needs more work, more attention really than the others, because in this module, this is all the teaching. The visual illustration is going to be real tough for this one. To figure out a visual that actually illustrates teaching. And you might want to explain exactly what's going to happen here. This component will illustrate the first step, providing a model for step behavior. That's probably good enough, but except that instead of saying the first step, I think I'd probably describe the first step here. This component will illustrate explaining or the description of behavior, providing a model for behavior. The activity, I think the activity should be fairly simple here. It's a question of, you might want to point out that you're either in your HTML text or in your actual activity, probably just in your HTML text. In your HTML text, you should be giving some criteria for what's good and what's bad. So if it does this, if you are able to do this without pejorative characterization or anything like that, If it describes his behavior so that people understand exactly what it is you're talking about, things like that. You need to give some tips on what makes good description of behavior, so that in the discussion, people have a basis for saying that's your practice of that is acceptable or not acceptable.
Okay.
So that's the kind of guidance you need to give. You need to make sure that it helps. It would help for you to put yourself in the storyboard and imagine that you're going to start creating content and think about any questions you have. Where am I going here? And think about how you could do it wrong. Initially, you could you could be just talking about in that this is about describing behavior, and you could leave out all that stuff about how you have to be careful that your description of behavior is not pejorative, it's not critical, it's not attacking the person. You could leave all that stuff out, and you might very well do that. Other interns would do that if they're not thinking, exactly, what we're trying to accomplish here. So that's where the aha needs to help, and your guidance here needs to help. And it would be helpful if you can think about anything that a person can do wrong in developing this, and give them a reminder. Don't let that happen, So this actually needs a good amount of work. Do you understand what work is needed?
Yes.
Okay, good. And if you need help with that, let me know. Ask me.
Okay.
I don't know, this hosting has been repeated over and over again as hosing. That's annoying me. So, are you still there, Waishan?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. I heard somebody dropped out. Did you leave and come back? Or did we have somebody?
There was some problem with the connection. That's why I was out for a while and then came back.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we can go ahead and I'm going to end the recording now, and you guys can. I'll let you go, unless you guys have any questions before I go.
Just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Are we going to update again? Or will be two?
Are you going to do what?
To update again, chat.
Oh, yes, we should be updating. We should definitely be updating the Gantt chart. Yes. Is there somebody that wants to do that? Michelle, have you been doing anything with the Gantt chart?
No.
And why not? I mean, most interns don't. And I'm wondering, is it just one more task that you can't get around to, or are you?
I thought it was confusing. That's just for me.
Okay.
But I can update it if you want me to.
Well, do you remember why I think that's important to you guys?
So everybody knows where everybody's at, and then we can help each other out.
That's one reason, but there's another reason, and that is that if you are looking for work, and you can tell your employer that you know how to use this tool, that you've used it, then that makes you more valuable. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you're on a team and you're the only one that knows how to do this, you're going to become more important to the team, and you're eventually going to become more of a leader, because you're the one that's tracking tasks and assigning people and reminding people what they need to do.
Okay.
And then finally, if you're doing multiple projects, this is the only key to sanity you have. You desperately need this. So when you cut on you're a new instructional designer, you get your first job, you're probably going to work under another instructional designer. That instructional designer is going to use this tool quite a bit. And they're going to want you to be able to enter information into it, just like I'm having you guys do. I don't know whether you have the rights to add new tasks But
Okay.
if you go into Team Gantt and you find it confusing, look at the tutorials. There's a lot of tutorials in there.
Okay.
Just click on tutorials. It's really a very simple tool to use, and once you see a few tutorials, you'll see how easy it is. But
Okay.
and if you're having trouble doing anything, just ask me,
Okay.
or put it up to the group, and And I think putting it up to would be great to the group, because everybody has the same questions, and so
Right.
far nobody's using this tool. I haven't been able to
Okay.
convince my interns how important this is to your future. You will in the future look back and say, I don't understand why I didn't get that.
Right.
Because
Okay.
when you're on your job, it's going to be so obvious to you that it's like you're hitting your forehead and saying, what was I thinking?
Oh,
You
okay.
cannot survive in this job without a tool like this. So,
Okay.
and believe me, when you're new to this and you start using this and show managers that you understand this stuff, that's just
Mhm.
gonna make you seem more impressive to them. So
Okay.
that's the reason really why I have this, because I believe you need it, but also I think it gives you a leg up when you're trying to, get ahead.